Story 1. The House One Evergreen Terrace. My name is Daniel Whitmore, and I've been a real estate agent in suburban Philadelphia for 15 years. I've walked through hundreds of homes, seen everything from immaculate mansions to condemned properties that should have been demolished decades ago. Nothing in my career prepared me for what I experienced on December 19th, 2019, at 847 Evergreen Terrace. The listing came through on a gray Tuesday morning. A 4-bedroom colonial in Maple Ridge, a neighborhood known for its elaborate Christmas decorations and family-friendly atmosphere. The price was suspiciously low, almost 40% below market value. The seller's agent, a woman I'd never worked with before, sent the details via email with a single note. Client wants immediate sale. Show any time. I called my client, the Hendersons, a young couple expecting their first child. They were thrilled at the prospect of a spacious home in their budget. We scheduled a viewing for that evening at 7 o'clock. I remember driving through Maple Ridge as the streetlights flickered on, each house competing with its neighbor in a dazzling display of colored lights, inflatable Santas, and elaborate nativity scenes. The neighborhood glowed with manufactured cheer that felt slightly desperate in its intensity. 847 Evergreen Terrace sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, distinguished by its complete absence of decoration. While every other house blazed with holiday spirit, this one remained dark, its windows like empty eye sockets in a skull. The lawn was overgrown despite the December cold, and a single wilted wreath hung crooked on the front door. Its red bow faded to a sickly pink. The Hendersons arrived 10 minutes late, apologizing about traffic. Jessica Henderson was 6 months pregnant, her belly prominent beneath her winter coat. Her husband Brian worked in IT, wore glasses that kept fogging up in the cold. They seemed like every other young couple I'd helped, optimistic, nervous, drowning in student debt, but determined to build something stable. I used the lockbox code to retrieve the key. The moment I touched the doorknob, I felt it, a wrongness I couldn't articulate. The metal was ice cold, colder than the December air around us, and seemed to pulse with a rhythm that reminded me uncomfortably of a heartbeat. I dismissed it as nerves or imagination and turned the key. The door swung open on silent hinges, revealing a foyer thick with dust. Our flashlights cut through the darkness. The power was supposedly on, but none of the light switches responded. The beam of my flashlight revealed outdated wallpaper, a pattern of faded poinsettias that might have been cheerful once, but now looked like dried blood spatters. The air inside was wrong, not just cold, but dense, heavy with the scent of pine and something underneath it, something organic and rotting. It needs work, but the bones are good, I said automatically, my sales pitch kicking in despite my discomfort. Brian nodded, already checking the crown molding with his flashlight. Jessica stayed close to the doorway, one hand on her belly. We moved through the first floor systematically. Living room with a fireplace that left soot stains climbing the wall like grasping fingers. Dining room with a chandelier that swayed despite the absence of any breeze. Kitchen with vintage appliances and a calendar on the wall, still turned to December 1987. Every room felt wrong, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting. Then we found the Christmas tree. It stood in what the listing called a family room at the back of the house. A real pine tree, at least 8 feet tall, positioned in front of a large bay window. It was fully decorated, lights, ornaments, tinsel, even presents wrapped beneath it. Everything covered in a thick layer of dust that sparkled in our flashlight beams like diseased snow. That's odd, Brian said, stepping closer. Why would they leave all this? I had no answer. The tree should have been brown and bare, dead for decades. Instead, it remained green, its needles intact, pine scent overwhelming. The ornaments were beautiful and disturbing. hand-blown glass in shapes that weren't quite right, angels with too many wings, reindeer with elongated skulls, a Santa face that seemed to follow our movement with its painted eyes. Jessica made a small sound of distress. "Daniel, can we check upstairs? I'm not feeling well." We climbed the staircase, its steps creaking in a musical pattern that sounded almost intentional, like the house was humming to itself. 4 bedrooms on the second floor, each one filled with furniture trapped in time. The master bedroom had a 4-poster bed with sheets still rumpled, as if someone had just gotten up. A closet full of clothes from the 80s, shoulder pads, and acid-wash denim. On the nightstand, a clock radio frozen at 3:47. The nursery made Jessica gasp. It was fully furnished for a baby. Crib, changing table, rocking chair. Mobile, hanging above the crib with little reindeer spinning slowly despite the still air. The walls were painted a cheerful yellow, and a border of dancing teddy bears in Santa hats circled the room at eye level. "This is perfect," Jessica whispered, moving into the room with something like reverence. "Brian, look at this. It's like it's waiting for us." But Brian was staring at something else, a photograph on the dresser. He picked it up, wiped the dust away with his sleeve. I moved closer to look. It showed a family, mother, father, infant. They stood in front of a Christmas tree, the same tree downstairs, decorated identically. The family was smiling, but something about their expressions was wrong. Too wide, too fixed, like masks. "We should check the basement," I said, suddenly desperate to finish this showing and leave. The basement door was in the kitchen, and I had to force it open, the wood swollen in its frame. The stairs descended into absolute darkness that seemed to swallow our flashlight beams. The air rising from below was frigid and carried that pine scent mixed with something else, copper and decay. Brian went first, then Jessica, then me. I counted 13 steps, an unlucky number my grandfather would have noticed. The basement was unfinished, concrete floor and exposed beams. In the center stood a work table with tools arranged in neat rows. On the wall, someone had painted a mural. It showed Evergreen Terrace, our street, with every house depicted in meticulous detail. But something was wrong with the perspective. The houses seemed to spiral inward, pulled toward number 847 at the center. And in the windows of each house, tiny painted figures stood watching, all facing the same direction, all looking at us. "Jesus Christ," Brian breathed. "This is..." The lights came on, not gradually, not with a flicker. Every light in the basement blazed to life simultaneously, fluorescent tubes humming with sudden power. We stood frozen, blinking in the harsh brightness. That's when I heard it, from upstairs, from the first floor, the sound of music, Christmas music. Bing Crosby singing White Christmas, the vinyl recording scratchy and warped. Jessica grabbed my arm. "Daniel, did you turn something on?" I shook my head, my mouth too dry to speak. The music grew louder, and then we heard footsteps, slow, deliberate footsteps, moving across the floor above us. Back and forth, pacing like someone waiting for guests to arrive. Brian was already moving toward the stairs, pulling Jessica with him. I followed, my heart hammering. We climbed those 13 steps faster than we'd descended, and when we emerged into the kitchen, the house had transformed. Every light was on, every single light, burning with an intensity that hurt our eyes. The Christmas tree in the family room blazed, its lights flashing in patterns that seemed meaningful, like Morse code. The dust was gone. The house looked lived in, loved, as if we'd stepped through a membrane into an alternate version where the house had never been abandoned. "We need to leave," I said. "Right now." But Jessica was staring at something in the dining room. The table was set for dinner, 4 places, plates and silverware gleaming. In the center, a Christmas feast steamed as if freshly prepared. Turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, green bean casserole. The fourth place setting had a small gift beside the plate, wrapped in silver paper with a tag that read, "For the baby." Jessica moved toward it as if pulled by invisible strings. Brian grabbed her, but she shook him off, drawn to that table, to that gift. She reached for it with shaking hands. "Don't," I said, but my voice came out as a whisper. She picked up the gift. It was heavy, I could tell by the way she held it. She turned it over, looking for a seam in the wrapping. The music changed, still White Christmas, but now playing backwards, the words garbled and wrong. The lights began to strobe, on and off, plunging us into darkness and brightness in rapid succession. In one of the dark intervals, I saw them, figures standing in the doorways. 3 of them, the family from the photograph, their smiles too wide, their eyes too bright, waiting. When the lights came back on, they were gone. But Brian was screaming, pointing at Jessica's hands. The gift she held was unwrapping itself, the paper peeling away in strips that fell upward instead of down, defying gravity. Inside was a box. Inside the box, something moved. I don't remember how we got outside. I have a confused memory of running, of doors that seemed to multiply, hallways that stretched impossibly long. I remember Jessica crying, Brian shouting, my own voice joining theirs. I remember the cold night air hitting my face like a slap, the normal darkness of the street after the blazing madness of the house's interior. We stood on the lawn, gasping, our breath forming clouds in the December air. Behind us, 847 Evergreen Terrace stood dark again, every light extinguished, as if nothing had happened. The crooked wreath on the door swayed in a breeze I couldn't feel. Jessica still clutched the gift. In the streetlight's glow, we could see what was inside the box she'd unwrapped. It was a sonogram picture, but not hers. This one showed a baby that was wrong, too many fingers visible, the skull an odd shape, something in the image that made us look away instinctively. Brian threw the box and its contents into the street. We got in our cars and drove away. I called the seller's agent the next morning. The number was disconnected. The email address bounced back as invalid. When I checked the MLS listing, 847 Evergreen Terrace showed as off-market, withdrawn by seller. But here's what haunts me. I drove back there 3 days later, December 22nd, in broad daylight. I had to see it again, had to prove to myself that the house was real. I found Evergreen Terrace easily enough, the other houses still drowning in Christmas decorations. But number 847 wasn't there. The cul-de-sac ended at 845, and then there was just woods, dense pine forest pressing up against the last house's property line. I asked a neighbor who was adjusting his inflatable snowman. "Excuse me, isn't there supposed to be another house here? 847. He looked at me like I was crazy. "Son, this street only goes to 846. Always has. There's no 847. But I have the listing printout. I have the lockbox code written in my notebook. And Jessica Henderson, who lost her baby 2 weeks later, stillborn at 7 months, with abnormalities the doctors couldn't explain. She still has dreams about that nursery. About the mobile spinning over an empty crib. About standing at that table. About to unwrap a gift meant for the child she'd never hold. I quit real estate. I work in a hardware store now, selling hammers and paint to people renovating their normal houses. But every December, when the Christmas decorations go up, I think about 847 Evergreen Terrace. I wonder where it is now, what street, what city, what family will get that listing with the too good to be true price. Who will walk through that door and find the Christmas tree waiting, still green after all these impossible years, presents gathering beneath its branches for children who will never be born. Story 2, The Santa Call. My name is Thomas Brenner, and I worked as a 911 dispatcher in Portland, Oregon for 12 years before what happened in December 2016 made me walk away from the career I loved. People think dispatchers have the easy job, sitting in a climate-controlled room, drinking coffee, answering phones. They don't understand that we're the first responders to horror, the voices that people reach for when their worlds are ending. We hear it all, and we're trained to stay calm, to process the information, to send help. But there are some calls that bypass training, that reach into your chest and squeeze until you can't breathe. December 24th, 2016. Christmas Eve. I was working the overnight shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., which meant I'd miss Christmas morning with my own family, my wife and 2 daughters, ages 6 and 8. The call center was quieter than usual. Most people were home with their families, or at least trying to be. We got the typical holiday calls. Domestic disturbances fueled by too much drinking. Elderly people who'd fallen while decorating. A few heart attacks probably triggered by rich food and family stress. At 2:47 a.m., my console lit up with an incoming call. I put on my headset and answered with the standard greeting. 911, what's your emergency? Silence. Not dead air. There was something there. A presence on the other end. I could hear breathing, shallow and fast, like someone who'd been running. In the background, I heard music, Christmas music. Santa Claus is Coming to Town, the vintage version, playing on what sounded like an old phonograph, all scratchy and distant. 911, can you hear me? Do you need help? I kept my voice steady, professional. Sometimes callers are in shock, unable to speak right away. Then finally, a voice. A child's voice, high and thin. A little boy. He's in the house. My training kicked in immediately. Possible home invasion, child alone, imminent danger. I started typing, pulling up the caller ID. The address populated, 2847 Riverside Drive. Residential neighborhood, middle class, low crime. I started a police response, priority 1, while keeping the child on the line. Okay, I need you to stay calm. Can you tell me your name? Christopher, I'm 7. He's in the house and he won't leave. Who's in the house, Christopher? Is it someone you know? Santa Claus. The child's voice was utterly serious, terrified. He came down the chimney, but he's wrong. He's wrong, and Mommy won't wake up, and he just keeps standing there smiling, and I don't want him to see me, but I think he knows where I'm hiding. I'd dealt with children in crisis before. Sometimes they process trauma through imagination, turning an intruder into a monster, or, in this case, a holiday figure gone wrong. I needed to keep him talking, keep him hidden until police arrived. Christopher, that's a very brave thing you're doing, calling 911. You're doing exactly the right thing. Where are you hiding right now? In Mommy's closet, upstairs. I can see him through the crack in the door. He's standing by the Christmas tree. He's so tall. His suit is wrong. It's not red. It's brown, like old blood. And his beard is yellow. His eyes are black, no white parts. He's holding a bag, but I can hear things moving inside it, scratching. The hairs on my neck stood up. The detail was too specific, too visceral for a 7-year-old's imagination. I checked my screen. Police were 6 minutes out. 6 minutes that felt like 6 hours. What about your mom? Where is she? On the couch. I tried to wake her up, but she won't move. She's just sleeping. We were waiting for Santa, and she said she'd stay up with me, and we had cookies and milk and... His voice broke, fighting tears. Did I do something bad? Is this because I was bad this year? Did Santa come to punish me? No, Christopher. Listen to me. You're not bad. This isn't your fault. I need you to stay very quiet in that closet. Don't come out until you hear the police. They're almost there, okay? Can you do that for me? He's moving. The terror in the child's voice made my hands shake. He's walking around the room. He's looking at the pictures on the wall. He stopped at mine, my school picture. He's touching it with his finger, and he's smiling wider now. His teeth are brown. I can smell him from here, like meat left in the sun, like the garbage truck in summer. I could hear it now too, through the phone. Heavy footsteps, deliberate, slow. And that music, still playing, but it sounded wrong now, warped, as if the record was melting while it played. Police are 3 minutes away, Christopher. Stay quiet. Stay hidden. He's at the stairs. Whisper quiet now. He's climbing. Each step makes this creaking sound. He's singing along with the music, but the words are wrong. He's saying he knows when you're awake. He knows when you're not. He knows if you've got bad blood or good. So hide, for goodness sake. I was cold all over, despite the warm dispatch center. I could hear what Christopher heard. Those heavy footsteps on the stairs, the creaking wood, and underneath it all, a voice singing, deep and wet, like someone with lungs full of fluid. He's in the hallway. Oh God, he's checking the rooms. I can hear him opening doors. My room first. He's in there for a long time. What's he doing? What's he doing in my room? Stay quiet, I urged. Police are 90 seconds away. He's coming to Mommy's room. I can see the doorknob turning. It's turning so slow. The door is opening. The silence that followed was the worst sound I've ever heard. Complete, absolute silence, as if the world had been placed in a vacuum. Even the Christmas music had stopped. Then Christopher's voice, barely audible. He's standing in the doorway. He's not moving. He's just standing there with his bag. His head is tilted like a dog listening, like he's trying to hear something. He's trying to hear me breathing. Don't breathe, I said, then realized how insane that sounded. Breathe very slowly, very quietly. He's walking into the room, past the bed. He's going to the closet. Thomas, he's coming to the closet. The use of my name jolted me. I'd given it at some point, procedure to build rapport. But hearing it from this terrified child made it personal in a way that broke protocol. Thomas, I don't want to see him up close. I don't want to see his eyes. Please make him go away. Police are at your house right now, Christopher. I can hear them. And I could. Sirens faint through the phone, growing louder. They're coming through the door. He heard them too. He stopped moving. He's looking at the closet door. Right at the crack where I'm looking out. He sees me. Thomas. He sees me, and he's smiling, and his mouth is opening too wide. His jaw is unhinging like a snake, and inside, his mouth is just black, just empty, like looking into nothing, and the sound that came through the phone then still visits me in dreams. A wet, tearing sound. A scream that cut off mid-breath. Then thuds, crashes, and voices shouting, "Police! Show me your hands!" More chaos. Running footsteps. More shouting. Then a different voice on the phone, professional and calm. "This is Officer Mendez, Portland PD. Who am I speaking with?" "This is 911 dispatch. Thomas Brenner. I have a child caller reporting an intruder. What's your status?" "House is clear. We found an adult female on the couch. Deceased. Looks like possible overdose. Pills and alcohol. No sign of any intruder. But dispatch." He paused, and I heard something in his voice that made my stomach drop. "We found a phone in the master bedroom closet, still connected to 911. But there's no child here, no Christopher. There's no sign anyone was hiding in this closet." "That's impossible. I was talking to him for 7 minutes straight. He described everything. There's no child in this house, no toys, no kid's bedroom. This woman lived alone." I pulled up the case history for the address, while Officer Mendez was still on the line. What I found made me disconnect my headset and run to the bathroom, where I threw up my dinner. 2847 Riverside Drive had a history. 7 years earlier, almost to the day, on December 24th, 2009, a 7-year-old boy named Christopher Brennan had died in that house. The report said his mother had fallen asleep while intoxicated on Christmas Eve. The boy had tried to wake her, but couldn't. He'd called 911, reporting that his mother wouldn't wake up. By the time police arrived, the child had died of a previously undiagnosed heart defect, possibly triggered by stress and fear. He was found in his mother's closet, where he'd been hiding and talking to the 911 dispatcher, waiting for help. The dispatcher's name on that original call was listed in the report. Thomas Brenner. My name. But that was impossible, because I didn't start working as a dispatcher until 2012, 3 years after Christopher's death. I had no memory of that call, no knowledge of that case. I requested the audio archive of the original call from 2009. When they pulled it, I sat in a supervisor's office and listened to it. I heard my own voice, impossibly, talking to Christopher, saying the exact same words I'd said tonight. Every word identical, like a recording played back, or a loop, or something worse, like it had always been happening, was always going to happen, Christmas Eve after Christmas Eve, forever. The woman who died on the couch in 2016 was Sheila Brennan, Christopher's aunt. She'd inherited the house and moved in 6 months earlier, trying to overcome the tragedy, to reclaim the space. She'd died the same way, the same night, 7 years later. But here's what broke me, what made me quit and move my family to the East Coast, as far from Portland as I could get. I requested my own employment records. According to official documentation, I started working as a 911 dispatcher in Portland in February 2009, 10 months before I remember starting. I have memories of 2009, clear memories of working a different job, living in a different city. But the records say otherwise. Timesheets with my signature, performance reviews, a photograph of me at a Christmas party in December 2009, wearing a Santa hat, looking exactly as I look now, not 7 years younger. I tried to find other explanations, mental breakdown, false memories. But then the calls started coming on other Christmas Eves. I wasn't working dispatch anymore. I'd quit, moved, started driving a delivery truck. But at 2:47 a.m. on December the 24th, 2017, my cell phone rang. I answered without thinking. "He's in the house," Christopher's voice, just as terrified. "He's in the house and he won't leave." I threw the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. The next Christmas Eve, I left my phone turned off, locked in a drawer. But at 2:47 a.m., I heard it ringing anyway. Impossible, but ringing. I put pillows over my head. I could still hear it. That thin, terrified voice. "Thomas, he's coming. He's climbing the stairs. Thomas, why didn't you save me? You said you would save me." My wife thinks I have PTSD. She's probably right. But that doesn't explain the other things. Like how I found a photograph in our new house, a place we'd moved to sight unseen, 3,000 miles from Portland. The photo was tucked into a closet shelf in our bedroom. It showed a Christmas party. There I was, wearing a Santa hat, but this photo was dated December 2009. Behind me in the picture, barely visible through a window, was a house. I looked it up using reverse image search. 2847 Riverside Drive. I don't answer phones on Christmas Eve anymore. I don't work. I don't sleep. I sit awake, watching the clock, waiting for 2:47 a.m. to pass. My daughters ask why Daddy doesn't like Christmas anymore. My wife has suggested therapy, medication, separation. But how do I explain that I'm trapped in something that already happened? That Christopher is still in that closet, still calling, still waiting for help that will never arrive in time. That somewhere, in some version of reality that bleeds into mine, I'm still at that dispatch console, still hearing those footsteps climb the stairs, still listening as something wearing a Santa suit hunts a child through a dark house. Last Christmas Eve, at 2:47 a.m., the call came again. This time I answered. I don't know why. Compulsion, penance, madness. "Thomas," Christopher said, but his voice was different, older, tired. "Thomas, I need to tell you something. He's not in the house. He never was. Thomas, you're in the house. You've always been in the house. Why are you wearing that suit? Why are you climbing the stairs? Thomas, please stop climbing the stairs. Please don't open the closet door." The line went dead. I looked down at my hands in the darkness of my bedroom. For just a moment, just a fraction of a second, they looked wrong. Too large, too red, too stained. I'm writing this down as a warning or a confession, or maybe just a record that someone needs to find. If you work 911, if you're a dispatcher anywhere, and you get a call on Christmas Eve at 2:47 a.m. from a child named Christopher, don't answer. Let it ring. Let someone else take it. Because I think the call isn't really for help. I think it's for replacements. I think something needs a voice to use, a name to steal, a life to hollow out and wear like a suit. This Christmas Eve, I won't be home. I'm going to Portland. I'm going to 2847 Riverside Drive. I need to see if the house is still there, or if it disappeared like I fear it might, like I hope it will. I need to know if Christopher is real, or if I invented him, or if something worse is true, that we're both inventions, both recordings, playing in an empty house, both ghosts wearing each other's voices, calling out into the darkness of Christmas Eve. Forever. Story 3. The Carolers. My name is Raymond Foster, and I've lived in the same house in Burlington, Vermont, for 43 years. My wife Ann and I bought this place in 1976, raised 3 children here, buried Ann here in the backyard, under the maple tree she loved. I'm 72 now, retired from teaching high school history, and I've spent the last 8 years living alone in this big old house, comfortable with my memories and my routines. I tell you this so you understand. I'm not prone to flights of fancy. I don't believe in ghosts or monsters. I've lived through enough real horror. Vietnam, watching Ann die by inches from cancer, burying my middle son after a car accident, to have patience for supernatural nonsense. The world has enough genuine darkness without inventing more. But December 2018 tested everything I thought I knew about the nature of reality. It started on December 15th, a Saturday evening. I'd finished dinner, was settling into my recliner with a book and a glass of bourbon, when I heard them. Voices singing outside, clear and beautiful in the cold winter air. Christmas carols. "O Come, All Ye Faithful," performed in perfect 4-part harmony. I went to the front window and looked out. They stood on my sidewalk, illuminated by my porch light and the street lamp. 6 of them, arranged in a semicircle. 4 women and 2 men, wearing what looked like Victorian-era clothing. Long coats, top hats, bonnets, the works. They held leather-bound songbooks, and their breath formed clouds in the December air as they sang. It was a charming sight, exactly the kind of thing Burlington would do. Our neighborhood loves its Christmas traditions. I smiled, waved at them through the window. They waved back, but didn't stop singing. When they finished, "O Come, All Ye Faithful," they began, "God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen." I returned to my chair, listening to them through the window. They were exceptionally good. The harmonies were precise, the voices blending perfectly. After 3 songs, I heard them moving away, their voices fading as they presumably went to the next house. The next evening, Sunday, they came again. Same time, 7:30 p.m. Same spot on my sidewalk. Same 6 people in Victorian dress. Same songs in the same order. I thought it was odd that they'd returned to the same house 2 nights in a row. But perhaps they were practicing, perfecting their route. I waved again. They waved back and continued singing. Monday evening, 7:30 p.m. The carolers returned. Same people, same clothes, same songs, same order. This time I opened the door after the first song, stepped out onto the porch. "You folks are wonderful," I called out. "But you don't have to come back every night. I enjoyed it the first time." They finished "O Come, All Ye Faithful" before acknowledging me. Then, in perfect unison, all 6 turned their heads to look at me. They smiled, 6 identical smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. "We're here for you, Raymond," one of the women said. Her voice was beautiful, melodious, but something about it made my skin crawl. "We'll sing until you're ready." Ready for what? But they'd already started the next song. "God rest ye merry gentlemen," in the same perfect harmony. I stood there for a moment, confused and slightly unnerved, then went back inside. Through the window, I watched them finish their 3-song set and walk away into the darkness. They didn't go to any other houses. They simply walked to the end of the street and vanished around the corner. Tuesday evening, 7:30 p.m. They were back. I didn't go outside. I watched them through the window, trying to figure out what was bothering me. It took until the second song to realize they hadn't moved. Not at all. They stood in exactly the same positions, same poses. The woman on the left held her songbook at the same angle. The man on the right had his head tilted the same way. Even the clouds of breath formed in identical patterns. They were repeating. Not just the songs, but everything. Every movement, every gesture, every breath, like a video playing on a loop. When they finished and walked away, I grabbed my coat and followed them. I'm old, but I'm not infirm. I walk 3 miles every morning, doctor's orders for the heart. I kept a reasonable distance, watching them move down the street with measured, identical steps. They reached the corner where our street intersects with Maple Avenue, and they vanished. Not around the corner, I was close enough to see. They reached the edge of the streetlight's glow and simply ceased to exist, like someone had pressed a delete button. One moment there, next moment gone. I stood at that corner for 20 minutes, cold seeping through my coat, staring at the empty sidewalk. A car passed. A neighbor walked her dog, said hello. Everything normal except for the 6 carolers who had evaporated into the December night. At Wednesday evening, 7:30 p.m., they were back on my sidewalk. I didn't go outside. I called my daughter instead, Catherine, who lives 20 minutes away. "Kat, can you come over? Something strange is happening." She arrived during the second song. I pulled her to the window. "You see them? The carolers? Yeah, they're lovely. Very festive. This is your emergency. They've come every night this week. Same time, same songs, same everything." Catherine looked at me with concern. "Dad, are you feeling okay? Have you been taking your medications?" "I'm not crazy, and I'm not senile. Watch them. Really watch." We stood at the window for the 3rd song. "Hark the Herald Angels Sing." I pointed out what I'd noticed, the identical positioning, the synchronized breathing, the robotic precision of their movements. Catherine watched, and I saw her expression change from humoring the old man to genuine unease. "That is weird," she admitted. "They're like animatronics. Should we go talk to them?" I tried that. They said they're here for me, that they'll sing until I'm ready. Ready for what? That's what I asked. Catherine went outside. I watched from the porch as she approached the carolers. They finished their song before acknowledging her. Then, in that same creepy unison, they all turned to look at her. "Who are you?" Catherine asked. "Why do you keep coming to my father's house?" "We're singing for Raymond," they said together, 6 voices blending into one. "We've been singing for Raymond for a very long time. He'll join us soon." "Join you? What does that mean?" But they'd already started walking away, moving in that weird, synchronized way. Catherine tried to follow, but they moved faster than seemed possible, and within seconds, they'd reached the corner and vanished. She stood there, staring, then came back to the house, pale and shaken. "Dad, I think you should stay with me for a few days." I'm not leaving my house because of some strange carolers. Then I'm staying here. Thursday evening, 7:30 p.m. Catherine and I both watched from the window. The carolers appeared on schedule, but something was different. There were 7 of them now, 6 in Victorian dress, and 1 in the back wearing modern clothes. Jeans, a sweater, a winter coat. It took me a moment to recognize him because his hair was longer than I'd last seen it, and he was smiling in a way he never had in life. "Cat," I said quietly. "Cat, that's Michael. My son, my middle child. Dead for 12 years, killed by a drunk driver 3 days after Christmas 2006. There he stood, looking 32 years old forever, singing "O Come, All Ye Faithful," with 5 Victorian carolers, and smiling that wrong smile that didn't reach his eyes. Catherine made a sound like a wounded animal. She was at the door before I could stop her, running into the yard, screaming Michael's name. I followed, my old heart hammering. The carolers didn't stop singing. Michael looked at Catherine with his dead eyes and his wrong smile, and kept singing. She grabbed him, shook him, begged him to speak. He felt real. Catherine told me later she could feel the fabric of his coat, could see the stubble on his chin, could smell his cologne, the same brand he'd always worn. But he didn't react, didn't speak, just kept singing. When the song ended, all 7 turned to us. Michael's mouth moved with the others. "We're singing for Raymond. He'll join us soon." "Michael, please," Catherine sobbed. "Michael, it's me. It's Cat." But they were already walking away. Michael went with them, moving in that synchronized way. And when they reached the corner, he vanished with the rest. Catherine collapsed in the snow. I helped her inside, gave her brandy, held her while she cried. We didn't call anyone. Who would believe us? We'd both seen it, both touched him. My son, 12 years dead, singing Christmas carols on my sidewalk. Friday evening, neither of us wanted to look, but we had to. 7:30 p.m. came, and we stood at the window, holding hands like frightened children. 8 carolers this time. Michael was there, and behind him, a woman in a floral dress I'd bought for our 20th anniversary. Anne, my wife. Dead 8 years from pancreatic cancer, somehow restored to health and youth. Maybe 50 years old. Her hair the auburn color it had been before chemotherapy took it. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Catherine had to hold me up. They sang their 3 songs. Anne's voice was just as I remembered, a clear soprano that always made me think of bells. She looked at me through the window, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw something in her eyes. Recognition, love, sorrow. Then it was gone, replaced by that empty smile. After the 3rd song, they all turned to face the house. 8 voices speaking as one. "Raymond, it's almost time. One more night, and you can join us. We've missed you. Don't you want to see Anne again? Don't you want to see Michael? We're all waiting. We're all singing. One more night." They walked away. Anne and Michael disappeared with the others. Saturday, December 22nd. My daughter wanted to call the police, call a priest, call someone. I refused. I knew somehow that nothing could stop what was coming. I'd felt it for days, a heaviness in my chest, a coldness in my bones. The heart medication wasn't working as well. I'd wake at night unable to breathe. I was dying. Slowly, maybe, but dying. The carolers weren't supernatural invaders. They were a welcoming committee. 7:30 p.m., Catherine and I stood at the window. I'd made her promise not to go outside, no matter what. 9 carolers this time. Anne, Michael, the 6 Victorian strangers. And one more person at the back. My mother. Dead 40 years. Looking exactly as she had when I was a child. They sang, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. 9 voices in perfect harmony, singing songs of joy and peace and reunion. I understood what they meant now, what they'd always meant. Until you're ready. Ready to let go, ready to join them, ready to stop being alone in this big empty house full of ghosts and memories. I put my hand on the window. Anne saw me, and her smile became real, became the smile I'd fallen in love with 50 years ago. Michael waved. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, no." Catherine grabbed my arm. Don't go outside. Please. They're my family, Kat. I'm your family. I'm here. I'm alive." She was right. I looked at my daughter, my youngest, my baby, now a woman of 45 with her own children, her own life. And I saw her fear. Not just fear of losing me, but fear of what it meant that the dead were singing in the street, that the boundary between worlds had worn so thin. I stepped back from the window. "You're right. I'm sorry." The carolers finished their third song. They stood silent for a long moment, waiting. Then, together, they turned and walked away. I watched Anne go, watched Michael go, watched my mother go. They reached the corner and vanished. That night, lying in bed, I had a heart attack, a bad one. Catherine heard me gasping and called 911. The EMTs arrived in time, barely. They told me later I was clinically dead for 90 seconds. Flatline, nothing. Then I came back. While I was dead, or maybe while I was dying, I saw them. Not just Anne and Michael and my mother, but hundreds of carolers, thousands, all standing in perfect rows that stretched into infinity, all singing, all waiting. They weren't dressed like Victorians, like I'd thought. Their clothes were from every era: colonial dress, medieval robes, ancient, tunics, modern suits. They were everyone who'd ever died waiting for someone. Everyone who'd ever come to collect a loved one. Everyone who sang on the border between life and death. And I understood. The carolers weren't evil. They were mercy. They were the universe's way of making death less lonely, of sending familiar faces to guide you home. Anne was there because she'd been waiting for me. Michael was there because he wanted to be with his mother again. My mother was there because she'd been patient for 4 decades, ready to welcome her son whenever he was ready to come. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Catherine needed me. My grandchildren needed me. I had time left, maybe not much, but some. So I said no. I refused the song. I turned away from the chorus and fought my way back to the pain and the light and the sound of Catherine crying beside a hospital bed. I survived. Spent a week in the hospital, got a pacemaker, changed my diet, started going to cardiac therapy. It's been over a year now, December 2019. Christmas is coming again soon. The carolers haven't returned, not yet. But sometimes, late at night, I hear them in the distance. Faint voices singing, "O come all ye faithful," impossibly far away. But getting closer, always getting closer. Catherine doesn't hear them, but I do. I know they're still waiting. Anne is still waiting. Michael is still waiting. And the strange thing is, I'm not afraid anymore. Death is coming for all of us. It's the one appointment we can't cancel. But knowing that someone I love will be there to meet me, singing songs of joy and welcome, that's not horror. That's grace. I just hope, when my time really comes, that Catherine isn't looking out the window. I don't want her to see me take my place in the chorus, to watch me turn and walk away toward that corner where the streetlight fades into darkness. I don't want her to spend the rest of her life wondering if she'll see her own children standing on her sidewalk someday, singing in the snow, waiting for their turn to guide her home. Story 4. The Department Store Santa. My name is Kevin Ashford, and before December 2014, I thought I understood people. I'd been a clinical psychologist for 18 years, specializing in childhood trauma. I'd heard hundreds of disturbing stories from children: abuse, neglect, violence, loss. I thought I'd developed immunity to horror, that my professional detachment would protect me from anything. I was arrogant enough to believe that nothing a child could say would truly shake me. Then I met Ethan Wallace, and I learned how wrong I was. Ethan was referred to me by his school counselor in mid-December. He was 8 years old, bright, from a stable middle-class family in suburban Chicago. Mother and father both present, no history of abuse or trauma. But according to his teacher, Ethan had become increasingly withdrawn after Thanksgiving. He'd stopped playing with other children. He wasn't sleeping. He'd started drawing disturbing pictures during art class. Dark, violent images that worried the staff. His mother, Jennifer Wallace, brought him to my office on December 16th. She was clearly exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hands trembling slightly as she filled out the intake forms. "He won't tell me what's wrong," she said. "He just says that Santa knows, that Santa is watching, that Santa is coming back." "Coming back from where?" I asked. "That's what I don't understand. We haven't taken him to see any mall Santas this year. He's been afraid of them since the incident." "What incident?" She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Last Christmas, we took him to Riverside Mall. There was a Santa there, part of the Christmas Village display. Ethan was excited. He loved Santa at that age, couldn't wait to tell him what he wanted for Christmas. But when we got to the front of the line, when it was his turn to sit on Santa's lap, he froze, started screaming, wouldn't go near him. The poor Santa tried everything, offered candy, toys, was very gentle. But Ethan just kept screaming. We had to leave. I thought he'd gotten over it, but now. I asked her to wait in the lobby while I talked to Ethan alone. The boy sat in the chair across from my desk, small for his age, with dark hair and eyes that looked too old for his face. He carried a backpack that he clutched to his chest like a shield. "Ethan, I'm Dr. Ashford. You can call me Kevin if you want. Your mom is worried about you. She says you've been having a hard time. Santa knows what I did." His voice was flat, emotionless. "Santa saw me, and now he's coming back." "What did you do?" I lied. I lied to my mom about breaking her vase. I said the cat did it, but I did it. I knocked it off the table playing, even though I wasn't supposed to play in the living room. And Santa knows. He knows I'm on the naughty list. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "Ethan, lots of kids lie sometimes. It doesn't make you bad. Did you tell your mom the truth?" "Yes, after. I told her, and she said it was okay, that she wasn't mad, that it was just of us. But Santa knew before I confessed. He knew when I was lying. He looked at me, and he knew." "You mean the Santa at the mall last year?" Ethan nodded. "He wasn't like the other Santas. The other Santas smiled all the time, even when kids cried. This one only smiled when he looked at me. And his eyes, they were wrong. Not the color, not anything I could explain. Just wrong. Like they could see through me. See everything I'd ever done wrong. Every bad thought. Every lie. I'd heard variations of this before. Children who developed anxiety around authority figures, who projected their guilt onto symbolic figures like Santa Claus. It wasn't uncommon, especially in children with perfectionist tendencies. "Ethan, Santa Claus isn't real. He's a story, a fun tradition, but he's not actually watching you. The person you saw at the mall was just a regular man in a costume." That's what I thought too. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a stack of papers. But then these started appearing. He handed them to me. They were drawings done in crayon and colored pencil, surprisingly detailed for an 8-year-old. Each one showed the same figure, a man in a Santa suit, but wrong. The suit was too dark, almost brown. The beard was yellowish. The proportions were off, the body too long, the limbs too thin. And the face. The face was rendered with disturbing precision. Small eyes, too close together. A smile that showed too many teeth. In every picture, the Santa figure was watching something. A house, a bedroom window, A child sleeping. "Did you draw these?" I asked. Ethan shook his head. "I find them in my backpack, in my desk at school, under my pillow. One was in my lunchbox yesterday. My mom packs my lunch every morning. She didn't put it there, but it was there anyway, folded up next to my sandwich. Maybe another student is playing a prank. Nobody sits near me at lunch. Nobody touches my backpack. And look at the drawings, really look. That's my house. That's my bedroom window. That's me in my bed. How would another kid know what my room looks like?" He was right. The background details were specific. The distinctive gabled roof of his house, the oak tree in the front yard, the arrangement of furniture visible through a bedroom window. Someone had either been to his house or had detailed knowledge of it. "Have you shown these to your parents?" My dad says I must be drawing them myself and forgetting. Some kind of sleep drawing. But I'm not. I know I'm not. And yesterday, he paused, swallowing hard. Yesterday, I found one that was different. He pulled one more drawing from the backpack. This one was larger, drawn on what looked like butcher paper. The image showed the same disturbing Santa figure, but now he was inside a room. A living room, decorated for Christmas. Tree, stockings, presents. A family stood frozen in the image. Mother, father, child. And Santa stood behind them, impossibly tall, his shadow falling over all three. Written across the top in neat adult handwriting, "I'm coming back, 7 days." The date at the bottom was December 10th, 6 days ago. "Ethan, where did you find this?" "Hanging on our Christmas tree. My mom and dad didn't see it. I looked right at it and asked them what it was, and they said, 'What are you talking about? There's nothing there.' But I could see it. I took it down and brought it to my room, and they never mentioned it. Like it was invisible to them, like it's only for me. I felt a chill despite the warmth of my office. I didn't believe in supernatural persecution, but something was clearly happening to terrify this child. I'd like to keep these drawings, if that's okay. I want to study them, maybe figure out where they're coming from." Ethan looked relieved to be free of them. "You can have them. I don't want them. But Dr. Kevin, it won't matter. He'll make more. He wants me to know he's watching, that he hasn't forgotten, that naughty children get what they deserve." I spent that evening analyzing the drawings. The artistic skill was far beyond an 8-year-old's capability. Detailed shading, proper perspective, anatomical accuracy. Someone with training had drawn these, but who? And why target a child with such an elaborate, disturbing campaign? I called Jennifer Wallace. "Has Ethan had any contact with adults outside your immediate family? Teachers, coaches, neighbors?" "Just his regular teachers, and they're all women. He plays soccer, but the coach is female too. Our neighbors are mostly elderly or younger couples without kids." "Why?" "These drawings show professional skill. Someone with art training is creating them. Someone who knows details about your home and family." She was silent for a moment. "You think someone is stalking us? Stalking Ethan?" "I think someone is deliberately trying to frighten him. I'm going to recommend you file a police report. In the meantime, I'd like to see Ethan again. Tomorrow, if possible." We scheduled an appointment for the next afternoon, December 17th. But Jennifer called me that morning, her voice high and panicked. "He's gone. Ethan is gone. His bed is empty. His window is open. There's snow on the floor where someone climbed in, or where he climbed out." I told her to call the police immediately, then drove to their house. It was chaos when I arrived. Police cars, worried neighbors, search parties organizing. Jennifer was near hysteria. Ethan's father, David, looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Detective Sarah Morrison was in charge. I pulled her aside, showed her the drawings Ethan had given me. "He's been receiving these for weeks. Someone has been targeting him, terrorizing him." She studied them with a professional eye. "These are disturbing. Do you have any suspects?" "No, but Ethan mentioned a Santa at Riverside Mall last Christmas, one that frightened him badly. It might be worth checking if they have records of who played Santa that season. Morrison nodded. We'll look into it. But Dr. Ashford, I have to ask, is there any possibility Ethan orchestrated this himself? Some kind of elaborate reaction to anxiety, a way of getting attention. He's 8 years old. He didn't draw these pictures, and he didn't open his own window from the outside. There are footprints in the snow leading to his window from the woods behind the house. Large footprints, boot prints, size 13 or 14, leading from the tree line directly to Ethan's window, then back again. The snow had started falling around midnight, so the prints were recent. Someone had approached the house in the night, opened the window, and taken Ethan. The search expanded. Police dogs tracked Ethan's scent from his window to the woods, then lost it at a clearing about half a mile from the house. There, in the center of the clearing, they found something that made Detective Morrison call me immediately. Dr. Ashford, I need you to see this. I drove to the woods, hiked to the clearing with a police escort. What we found there defied immediate explanation. A circle had been cleared in the snow, about 20 feet in diameter. In the center stood a chair, an elaborate throne-like chair that looked like it belonged in a shopping mall's Christmas display. It was red velvet and gold trim, absurdly out of place in the frozen forest. On the chair sat a pile of children's toys. Old toys, vintage, the kind you'd see in antique shops. A porcelain doll with cracked face, a wooden train with peeling paint, a teddy bear with one eye missing. And propped against the chair, more drawings, dozens of them, all showing the same disturbing Santa figure. All showing different children, not Ethan, but other kids, other houses, other bedrooms. What the hell is this? Morrison breathed. One of the forensics team was photographing everything. Detective, you need to see this. He pointed to the ground around the chair. There were marks in the snow, not footprints, but something else. Long, dragging marks, like someone had been pulled or dragged in a circle around the chair. And there was a smell, faint but distinctive. Pine, strong pine scent, like a Christmas tree, but with something rotten underneath. We found Ethan 3 hours later. He was alive, sitting at the base of a tree another mile deeper into the woods, wrapped in a red blanket. When the search party reached him, he was staring straight ahead, unresponsive. His lips were blue from cold, but he was physically unharmed. In his lap was another drawing, the most disturbing yet. It showed Ethan sitting on the Santa figure's lap. The Santa was whisper into Ethan's ear. The caption, in that same neat adult handwriting. You've been very naughty, but I'm giving you one more chance. Be good, or I'll take you to where the bad children go. Ethan spent 2 days in the hospital being treated for mild hypothermia and severe psychological trauma. He wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat, just stared at nothing with those 2 old eyes. The doctors said he was in shock. Detective Morrison's investigation hit dead ends everywhere. The chair in the woods had been wiped clean. No fingerprints, no DNA. The drawings were on common paper stock. The handwriting couldn't be traced. Riverside Mall had records of their Santa performers, but all of them checked out. Middle-aged men with clean backgrounds. No red flags. The mall Santa from Christmas 2013, the one Ethan had been afraid of, was named Martin Reed. He'd worked as a professional Santa for 30 years, beloved by children. No history of any kind of inappropriate behavior. He'd died in March 2014, 9 months before Ethan's abduction, from a heart attack. Dead. The Santa that had frightened Ethan so badly was dead and had been for months. I visited Ethan in the hospital on his 3rd day there. He was sitting up in bed, still not speaking, but his eyes tracked me as I entered. I pulled a chair close. "Ethan, I know you're scared. I know something terrible happened, but you're safe now. No one can hurt you here." He looked at me for a long moment, then whispered. He showed me. "Showed you what?" "Where the bad children go." He took me there, not in a car, not walking. We were in my room, and then we were somewhere else, a room with no windows. Rows and rows of chairs. And sitting in the chairs were children, hundreds of children, just sitting, not moving, not talking, just sitting and staring. All of them had been naughty. All of them were waiting. Waiting for what? Christmas. Forever Christmas. He said that naughty children don't get presents. They become presents. They get wrapped up in good behavior and given to the next Santa and the next Santa forever. He said I was lucky. He said because I confessed about the vase, because I told the truth eventually, I get one more chance. But if I'm naughty again, he'll come back, and next time I'll sit in a chair too. Forever. The boy started crying then, deep, wrenching sobs. I held him while nurses rushed in, while his mother came running. But I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said. The details were too specific, too vivid. Either Ethan had an incredibly creative imagination, or something impossible had happened. Detective Morrison never solved the case. No suspects were ever identified. The official report classified it as a stranger abduction with unknown motive. Victim recovered, perpetrator at large. The file eventually went cold. Ethan's family moved to another state in February 2015. I heard through mutual connections that Ethan slowly recovered, though he never celebrated Christmas again. His parents stopped putting up trees, stopped exchanging presents. December became a month they endured, waiting for January's relief. I think about Ethan often, especially at Christmas. I think about Martin Reed, the mall Santa who died before Ethan was taken. I requested his medical records and discovered something Detective Morrison had missed. Reed had died on December 25th, Christmas morning, while wearing his Santa suit at a children's hospital. He'd been volunteering, bringing joy to sick kids, when his heart simply stopped. A good man, a kind man, dead on Christmas in a Santa suit. And 9 months later, something wearing his face stalked a child through the woods. I don't work with children anymore. I couldn't after Ethan, because I kept wondering if he was telling the truth about what he saw, that room full of silent children. Then how many? How many naughty children have disappeared over the years? How many mall Santas have died and woken up as something else, something hungry, something that collects bad children the way we collect gifts? Last Christmas, I was walking through a mall, buying gifts for my wife. I passed the Christmas Village display, saw the line of children waiting to see Santa. The Santa was a thin man in a suit that looked slightly too large, slightly too dark. As I watched, he smiled at a child, and his eyes were wrong. Not the color, not anything I could explain, just wrong. I left the mall immediately. I don't go near them anymore, those Christmas displays with their cheerful music and fake snow, because now I know what Ethan knew. Some of those Santas are exactly what they appear to be, kind people in red suits, but some of them are something else, something that watches, something that judges, something that comes for children who've been naughty. And the truly horrifying thing, we give them our children willingly. We put them on Santa's lap and tell them to smile for the camera. We never think to ask, what if this Santa is real? What if he really is checking his list? What if he really does know who's been naughty or nice? What if he's not bringing presents? What if he's collecting them? Story 5. The Advent Calendar. My name is Nathan Pierce, and I used to teach mathematics at Lincoln High School in Austin, Texas. I was good at my job, patient with struggling students, enthusiastic about my subject, generally well-liked by kids who normally hated math. I had a normal life, a good life, until December 2017, when I received a gift that taught me that some patterns shouldn't be recognized, some sequences shouldn't be completed. It arrived at school on December 1st, left on my desk between classes. A large flat package wrapped in brown paper, tied with red string. No card, no return address. My name was written on the paper in beautiful calligraphy. For Nathan Pierce. I assumed it was from a grateful student or parent. Teachers often receive small gifts during the holidays. Inside was an advent calendar, but not the cheap chocolate kind you buy at drugstores. This was a work of art, an antique by the look of it. The frame was carved wood, dark and ornate, depicting winter scenes. Children building snowmen, families gathered around trees, carolers in the snow. The scenes were incredibly detailed, clearly hand-carved by a master craftsman. The calendar had 24 small wooden doors, each one numbered from 1 to 24. Behind each door was a small compartment, just big enough for a tiny object or figure. The whole thing was about 2 feet square and must have weighed 20 pounds. It was beautiful and slightly unsettling. In that way, very old things sometimes are. I showed it to my colleague, Patricia Evans, who taught art history. "Pat, look at this. Any idea how old it is?" She examined it carefully, running her fingers over the carved details. European, definitely. German, maybe Austrian. The craftsmanship is 19th century, maybe 1870s or 1880s. This is a museum piece, Nathan. Whoever gave you this gave you something worth thousands of dollars. Are you sure it was meant for you? My name's right on the package. Well, you have a very generous admirer. What's inside? She reached for the first door. Wait, I said, stopping her. It's December 1st. We should open door number 1. I don't know why I said that. The rule of Advent calendars is arbitrary, meaningless. But something about this particular calendar made me want to follow the rules. Patricia laughed and stepped back. By all means, do the honors. I opened door number 1. Inside was a tiny figurine carved from the same dark wood as the calendar itself. It showed a man standing alone, looking at something in his hands. The detail was remarkable. I could see the texture of the man's coat, the expression on his tiny face. He looked sad, contemplative. "That's charming," Patricia said. "What do you think he's holding?" I peered closer. The object in the figure's hands was too small to make out clearly. A letter, maybe? Or a book? Well, you'll have to show me what's behind door 2 tomorrow. I'm curious to see if they're all this detailed. I took the calendar home that evening, placed it on my mantelpiece. That night, I dreamed about the figurine. In my dream, it was life-sized, and I was the man, standing alone in a snowy landscape, holding a letter. I couldn't read the words on the page, but I knew they were important. I knew they would change everything. When I woke up, I felt anxious without knowing why. December 2nd. I couldn't wait to get home and open the second door. I'd thought about the calendar all day, distracted during my classes, earning concerned looks from students who weren't used to seeing Mr. Pierce zone out during lectures. When I finally opened door number 2, I found another figurine. This one showed the same man. I was sure it was the same man, same coat, same posture. But now he was reading the letter. His tiny carved face showed shock, or maybe horror. Behind him, barely visible in the background of the compartment, was the suggestion of a house. I placed the second figurine next to the first on the mantelpiece. They told a story. Man receives letter. Man reads letter with horror. What was in the letter? What had he learned? The dreams became more vivid. That night, I was the man again. But now I could read fragments of the letter. It talked about debts, about payment due, about something coming. I woke at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, the words "it knows where you live" echoing in my mind. December 3rd through December 7th passed in a blur. Each day, I rushed home to open the next door. Each day, the story continued. Door 3. The man standing at a window of his house, looking out at a snowy night. Something in the darkness beyond the window, a shape I couldn't quite make out. Door 4. The man frantically boarding up windows, nailing planks across them. Door 5. The man huddled in a corner of a room, holding what looked like a weapon, maybe a poker or a club. Door 6. The man sleeping in a chair, weapon across his lap. The door to his room slightly ajar. Door 7. The room empty except for the chair. The man gone, the door fully open. I stopped showing the figurines to anyone. I'd placed them in a row on my mantelpiece, and the story they told disturbed me. More disturbing were my dreams. Each night, I experienced what the figurine showed. I received the letter. I read it. I saw something outside my window. I boarded up my house. I waited in terror for something to come. And on the night of December 7th, I dreamed of footsteps, something climbing my stairs, something opening my door. I woke up before I saw what it was, but I could smell it, pine and decay. The same smell Ethan had described, though I didn't know about Ethan yet. This was years before I heard his story. December 8th. I didn't want to open the next door. I called in sick to school, spent the day staring at the calendar, trying to decide whether to continue. But the compulsion was overwhelming. At exactly midnight, as December 7th became December 8th, I found myself standing at the calendar, reaching for door number 8. The compartment was deeper than the others. Inside was a figurine of something else. Not the man, something tall and thin, wearing a long coat. Its face was wrong, too elongated, features too sharp. It stood in a doorway, stooped to fit through the frame. In one hand, it carried a bag. In the other, something small that I realized with creeping horror was the man. The figure held a tiny carving of the man, like a doll. I dropped the figurine. It hit the hardwood floor and should have broken. It was delicate, carved from brittle old wood. But it didn't break. It rolled, coming to rest upright, standing, the tall figure still holding its prize. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt myself being lifted, held by something too strong to resist, placed in a bag that smelled of pine and decay. I heard humming. Santa Claus is coming to town, but with words I couldn't quite make out. December 9th through December 15th, I tried to resist opening the doors, but each night at midnight, I'd find myself standing at the calendar, compelled. The story continued. Door 9, the tall figure walking through snow. Bag over its shoulder. The bag moved, bulging from within. Door 10, a town in the distance. Small houses, Christmas lights. Door 11, the figure standing outside a house, looking in a window. Door 12, inside the house, a family. Father, mother, 2 children, decorating a Christmas tree, unaware. Door 13, the figure at the door, knocking. Door 14, the father opening the door, smiling, welcoming. Door 15, the figure inside the house. The family gathered around it, the children reaching toward the bag. I was losing weight, not sleeping. My principal called me in for a meeting, concerned about my deteriorating appearance and performance. I tried to explain about the calendar, but couldn't. How do you tell someone that an antique advent calendar is telling you a story that you're experiencing in dreams, that you're afraid of what the last 9 days will show? December 16th. The compartment behind this door contained the family from the previous figurines, all 4 of them. But they were wrong now. Stiff, posed, sitting in chairs with fixed smiles. And the tall figure stood behind them, one hand on the father's shoulder. My dreams showed me the truth. The family hadn't welcomed a guest. They'd welcomed something that collected, something that took. The children had reached into the bag, and what they'd pulled out had looked like toys, but wasn't. The parents had smiled and offered hospitality, and the thing in the long coat had accepted. And by morning, the family was different, still alive, but not. Hollow. Waiting. December 17th. The figure leaving the house. The family standing at the window, waving. Their smiles too wide. December 18th. The figure walking through snow again, approaching another house. My dreams showed me which house. Mine. I saw it in perfect detail. My front door. My welcome mat. My porch light. December 19th. The figure standing at my front door. I could see the wood grain of my door in the tiny carved scene. I knew without opening my eyes what I'd see if I looked out my front window at night. I checked at midnight. And there, in the streetlight's glow, standing on my sidewalk, was something tall and thin in a long coat, carrying a bag. It stood motionless, watching my house. I called the police, told them someone was outside my house, threatening. 2 officers came. I watched from my window as they approached the figure. They talked to it. Then, incredibly, they laughed, shook its hand, walked away. When I called the station to complain, the dispatcher said the officers had reported finding a mall Santa on his way home from work, lost and looking for his car. Nothing suspicious, no cause for concern. December 20th. The figure inside my house, standing in my living room. In the carved scene, I could see the actual layout of my living room, my couch, my bookshelf, my TV. And there, on the mantelpiece, the calendar itself. The carving showed the calendar within the calendar, a recursive loop that made my eyes hurt to follow. I hadn't let it in. I'd locked every door, every window. I'd stayed awake all night on the 19th, watching, waiting. Nothing had entered. But when I opened door 20, I knew with absolute certainty that the thing would be inside my house, that the calendar was not predicting, but prescribing, making it happen. December 20th, 11:30 p.m. I was barricaded in my bedroom, every light on, clutching a baseball bat I hadn't swung since college. At midnight, I heard it. Footsteps downstairs, slow, deliberate. The creak of my hardwood floors, something moving through my living room. I wanted to call 911, but I knew they wouldn't help. They'd seen it and thought it was just a mall Santa. Everyone did. That was its camouflage. Hide in plain sight as the most recognizable figure of the season. The footsteps climbed the stairs. I counted them. 13 steps. The same number as in the house on Evergreen Terrace, though again, I didn't know that yet. Some numbers are significant. Some patterns repeat. It stood outside my bedroom door. I could see its shadow in the gap at the floor, blocking the light from the hallway. The doorknob turned slowly. I'd locked it, dead-bolted it, put a chair under the knob. But the door opened anyway, locks and barricades meaningless. The tall figure stood in the doorway, exactly as the figurine had shown, stooped to fit through the frame, bag in one hand. Up close, I could see it wasn't a costume. The red suit was skin. The white beard was something growing from its face. The eyes were black all the way through. No whites, no iris. Just black, like looking into empty wells. Nathan Pierce, it said, and its voice was the sound of ice cracking, of wind through dead trees. You've been watching the story. Do you understand it yet? I couldn't speak, couldn't move. The calendar is a gift and a warning. 24 days, 24 chances to escape the pattern. But you opened every door. You followed the story. You completed the sequence. It reached into its bag. Now you're part of it. What it pulled out wasn't a toy. It was a figurine, a tiny carved figure of me, exact in every detail, down to the baseball bat clutched in my wooden hands. It held the figurine up for me to see. You're in the story now. Door 21 will show you trying to run. Door 22 will show you failing. Door 23 will show you changing. Door 24 will show you waiting. And next year, someone else will receive the calendar. Someone else will open the doors. Someone else will learn the pattern. It moved toward me. I swung the bat. The wood passed through it like it passed through smoke. It grabbed me. Its hands were solid enough, impossibly strong and cold. I felt myself lifted, felt the world tilt, felt something fundamental about my existence shift. I don't remember clearly what happened next. Fragments only. Being placed in the bag, the smell of pine and decay. Darkness, the sound of humming. You better watch out. You better not cry. I woke up on December 21st in my bed. The tall figure was gone. The bedroom door was closed and locked from the inside, chair still wedged under the knob. I might have thought it was a dream, except for 3 things. First, my hands were numb. They felt wooden, stiff, hard to move. Second, on my mantelpiece, the figurine from door 21 was already placed, though I hadn't opened that door yet. It showed me at my car, throwing a suitcase in the trunk. Running. Third, when I looked in the mirror, my smile was wrong, too wide, too fixed. I did try to run, exactly as the figurine showed. I threw some clothes in my car and drove, made it as far as Houston before my hands seized up completely. I pulled over at a rest stop and looked at them. The skin had a grain to it now. Wood grain. My fingers didn't bend right anymore. December 22nd. I was back in Austin, in my house, though I don't remember driving back. The figurine from door 22 was on the mantelpiece. It showed me sitting in my living room, waiting, my smile too wide. December 23rd. The figurine showed me greeting someone at my door, welcoming them in, my smile too wide, my hand extended in invitation. December 24th, Christmas Eve. I opened the last door because the pattern must be completed. Behind door 24 was a mirror, a small mirror set into the back of the compartment. I looked into it and saw myself, but wrong, stiff, carved. My eyes black all the way through, my smile far too wide. Behind my reflection, I could see my living room, could see myself sitting in a chair, waiting. Part of the story now, part of the pattern. The calendar disappeared that night. I woke up on Christmas morning and it was gone from the mantelpiece. All the figurines were gone, but I remained changed. My hands are normal now, mostly. They function. But sometimes, late at night, I can feel the grain in them, can feel myself stiffening, becoming wooden, becoming carved. I quit teaching. I couldn't be around children anymore, couldn't risk spreading whatever I'd become. I see patterns everywhere now, in numbers, in dates, in the way people move. I see the calendar's story playing out in the world. I see people receiving gifts they shouldn't open. I see patterns they shouldn't complete. Last December, I saw a package on someone's doorstep. Brown paper, red string, beautiful calligraphy. I knocked on the door to warn them, but when the woman answered, she looked at me and her eyes went wide. "Oh my God," she said. "You're perfect. The kids will love you." "Are you from the entertainment company? We hired a Santa for the Christmas party." I wasn't wearing a red suit. I was wearing jeans and a jacket. But she saw a Santa. They always do now. That's my role in the pattern. That's what I became when I completed the sequence. I attend a lot of Christmas parties now, not by choice. The pattern calls me there. Children sit on my lap and tell me what they want for Christmas. I smile my too wide smile, and nod, and reach into a bag I don't remember picking up. The things I give them look like toys. The parents thank me. The children play with their new treasures. But I see what the gifts really are. I see the patterns forming around the children, the sequences beginning. In 20 years, some of them will receive Advent calendars. They'll open the doors one by one, following the story, completing the pattern. And the tall figure walks between houses, wearing different faces, spreading its story like a virus, teaching the pattern, growing the sequence. I see it sometimes in mirrors, in windows, in the corner of my vision, It waves at me. I wave back with my wooden hands, because I understand now. Christmas isn't about giving or receiving. It's about continuation, about patterns that repeat, about stories that tell themselves through us, using us like figurines in a calendar, opening new doors every year, forever. If you receive a calendar this December, don't open it. Break the pattern, burn it, throw it away. But you won't. I know you won't. Because the story is already written, carved in wood, hidden behind 24 doors. And the pattern must be completed. You'll open door 1. You'll see the figurine. You'll want to know what happens next. And by door 24, you'll be part of the story. You'll be carved. You'll be waiting. You'll be smiling. Far too wide. Story 6. The Christmas Lights. My name is Lawrence Hendricks, and I used to be a software engineer for a tech company in Seattle, Washington. I made good money, lived in a nice house in the suburbs, had a wife I loved, and a daughter who was the center of my world. I was obsessed with 2 things: coding elegant solutions to complex problems and Christmas lights. The first obsession made me successful. The second obsession destroyed my life. I'd been decorating my house for Christmas since we moved in, back in 2010. Nothing excessive at first. A few strings of lights on the roofline, maybe a lit-up tree in the front yard. But each year, I added more. More lights, more displays, more complexity. By 2016, my house was a neighborhood attraction. 10,000 lights synchronized to music, animated displays, a full light show that ran from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. every night in December. People would drive from across the city to see the Hendricks house at Christmas. I loved it. The planning, the programming, the installation. It was coding in physical space, creating something that existed in the real world, that brought joy to thousands of people. My wife, Amanda, tolerated it. My daughter, Lily, who was 9 in 2016, loved it. She'd watch from the window as people stood in our yard, faces lit up by thousands of multicolored lights, kids dancing to Jingle Bell Rock played through outdoor speakers. In November 2017, I started planning the biggest display yet, 20,000 lights, new animated sequences, integration with a new smart home system I'd been developing at work. The display would be controlled by a sophisticated AI algorithm that could respond to the music, adjust patterns in real time, even customize shows based on the number of viewers detected by motion sensors. It was going to be perfect. I spent every evening in November and early December installing the lights, strings and strings of LEDs, carefully placed and programmed. The control system was housed in a custom panel in my garage, a beautiful piece of engineering, if I say so myself. Circuit boards and relays and processors that would orchestrate 20,000 lights in perfect harmony. The first test run was on December 10th. I powered everything up at 6 p.m., launched the main show sequence. The house exploded with light and music. It was glorious. The new AI-controlled sequences were even better than I'd hoped. Patterns that evolved and shifted, creating effects I hadn't explicitly programmed, but that emerged from the algorithm's parameters. Amanda and Lily came out to watch. "It's beautiful, Larry," Amanda said, though I heard something worried in her voice. "Maybe a little bright?" "It's perfect," I said. "Wait until you see the full show. This is just the test." That night, I dreamed in light. Patterns of color and movement, mathematical sequences rendered in thousands of tiny bulbs. In the dream, the lights spelled out words, but I couldn't read them. When I woke up, the bedroom seemed dark, oppressively dark, even though sunlight streamed through the windows. My eyes hurt. I'd spent too many hours staring at the display, not blinking, trying to see every detail. The official launch was December 12th. I'd posted on social media, local community boards, neighborhood forums. Hendricks Christmas Spectacular, 2017, Bigger and better, shows nightly, 60 to 10 p.m. By 5:30 p.m., cars were already lining our street. By 6 p.m., there must have been 200 people in our yard and on the sidewalk. I launched the show from my phone using the custom app I'd developed. 20,000 lights came to life simultaneously. The algorithm kicked in, analyzing the crowd size, adjusting patterns. The effect was breathtaking. Waves of color washed across the house. Snowflakes formed and dissolved. Santa and his reindeer appeared to fly across the roofline. The music pounded from the speakers. Classic Christmas songs remixed with a heavy beat. The crowd loved it. I stood in the garage, watching the control panel, monitoring the system, feeling a surge of pride and satisfaction. This was my masterpiece. This was art rendered in light and code. Then Lily screamed. I ran outside. She was standing in the front yard, pointing at the house, her face pale. "Daddy, the lights are wrong." "What do you mean? They're perfect." "No, look, really look." She was crying now. "They're showing things." I looked at my house, at my 20,000 lights flashing in programmed patterns. I saw exactly what I'd designed. Beautiful, synchronized, perfect. "Sweetheart, they're just Christmas lights. There's nothing wrong." But other people were noticing too. I heard voices in the crowd, concerned murmurs. A woman pointed at the roof. Are those supposed to look like that?" I stared harder, trying to see what they saw. The lights flickered and shifted, patterns emerging and dissolving. And then, for just a moment, I saw it. The lights weren't just making abstract patterns. They were forming images, faces, distorted, wrong faces made of thousands of tiny bulbs, mouths open in silent screams, eyes too large and too empty. I pulled out my phone, shut the show down. The house went dark. The crowd murmured, confused. Some people left. Others stayed, waiting for the show to resume. "Technical difficulty," I called out. "Give me a few minutes." Back in the garage, I examined the control panel. Everything looked normal. No errors, no glitches. I checked the code, scrolling through thousands of lines, looking for bugs. Nothing. The AI algorithm was functioning exactly as designed, creating patterns within parameters I'd set. Maybe it was pareidolia, people seeing faces in random patterns, because our brains are wired to recognize faces. Maybe the algorithm had accidentally generated sequences that resembled facial features. I adjusted some parameters, limiting the types of patterns the AI could create, ensuring nothing that could be misinterpreted as faces or figures. I relaunched the show at 7 p.m. It ran perfectly for 3 hours. Beautiful patterns, no faces, no disturbing images. The crowd returned, enjoying the display. By 10 p.m., when the show automatically shut down, everyone was happy. Crisis averted. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing those faces in my mind, those wrong, distorted faces made of light. Around 2 a.m., I got up to get a glass of water. I looked out the kitchen window at my dark house. The lights were on. Not the full display. Just a few strings here and there, scattered across the roof and walls. I grabbed my phone. The control app showed the system as offline, powered down, but lights were definitely on. Maybe a relay had stuck, some kind of electrical fault. I went to the garage, intending to check the breakers. The control panel screen was active, showing status readouts, and running a show. The algorithm was executing a sequence, controlling lights, even though I'd shut everything down. I hit the master power switch, cutting electricity to the entire display system. The lights stayed on. Impossible. They were LEDs, low voltage, controlled by my system. If I cut the power at the source, they couldn't stay lit, but they did. And as I watched through the garage window, more lights came on, more and more, spreading across the house like a rash. I ran outside. The lights were blazing now, almost all 20,000 of them, burning brighter than they should be able to. LEDs have a maximum brightness, a limit imposed by their design. These were exceeding that limit. They hurt to look at, like staring at the sun, and they were forming patterns again. Not the patterns I'd programmed. Something else. The lights showed a figure, a human shape made of thousands of bulbs. It stood in the center of the display, arms outstretched. As I watched, it moved. The lights shifted, creating the illusion of motion. The figure walking across the front of the house, turning, looking down, looking at me. I heard Amanda screaming from inside. I ran back in. She was in the living room, backing away from the windows. The light outside was streaming in, painfully bright. "Larry, what's happening? What did you do?" "I don't know. I shut it all down." Lily was in her room, hiding under her covers. I ran to her, pulled her out, held her. The light coming through her window was so bright I could barely see. The shadows it cast were sharp and wrong, moving independently of any light source, dancing across the walls. I called 911, told them I had an electrical emergency, a fire hazard. They said they'd send the fire department. While we waited, the light show continued outside. The figure made of lights was walking around the house now, visible from different windows as it circled. When it passed Lily's window, it stopped, looked in, raised a hand made of hundreds of tiny bulbs, and pressed it against the glass. The fire truck arrived 15 minutes later, though it felt like hours. I met them outside, shouting over the blaring Christmas music that had started playing again. Carol of the bells, but wrong, discordant, the notes clashing. The fire chief looked at my house, at the blazing lights, and frowned. "Sir, where's the fire?" "The electrical system has malfunctioned. The lights won't shut off. They're overheating." He touched one of the light strings hanging from the gutter. "Sir, these aren't even warm. And honestly, this looks like a normal Christmas display to me. Bright, sure, but nothing dangerous." "What? Look at it. It's so bright it hurts. And the figure. Can't you see the figure?" "What figure?" I pointed at the house, at the obvious human shape made of lights, at the thing that was still pressing its hand against Lily's window. "That, right there." The fire chief exchanged looks with his crew. "Sir, I see Christmas lights. That's all. Maybe some patterns, but nothing unusual. Have you been drinking tonight?" They left after checking the electrical panel and finding nothing wrong. Told me to call an electrician in the morning if I was concerned. Suggested I might want to take a break from the display. Get some rest. The lights finally went dark around 4 a.m. I'd stayed up all night, watching them, watching the figure patrol around my house, looking in windows. Amanda and Lily slept in our bed, holding each other, while I kept vigil. In the morning, everything looked normal. The lights hung inert on the house, just decorations. I spent the day taking them all down, every single string, every connection. I disconnected the control system, wiped its memory, packed it all away in boxes in the garage. No more Christmas lights, no more displays. Whatever had happened, whatever I'd created or attracted, was over. December 13th, 14th, 15th passed quietly. No lights, no displays. The neighbors asked what happened, disappointed that the show had ended so abruptly. I made excuses about technical problems, about needing to focus on family. Lily seemed to recover. Amanda was still wary, but relieved. Then, on December 16th, the lights came back. I woke up at midnight to brightness streaming through the bedroom curtains. I ran to the window and saw my house blazing with light. Every single light I'd taken down, every string I'd packed away, was back. Not just back, installed. Hanging exactly where I'd had them, connected, powered, running a show. But I'd put them all in boxes. I'd sealed those boxes. I'd locked the garage. I ran to the garage. The door was open. The boxes were empty. The control panel was running, screen active, showing the algorithm executing sequences. I grabbed a hammer and smashed the panel, destroyed the circuit boards, ripped out the processors. The lights stayed on. I got a ladder and started ripping lights off the house. I pulled down whole strings, Threw them in the yard. They stayed lit. Even disconnected, even lying in the grass, they glowed. I stomped on them, smashed them with the hammer. The bulbs should have shattered. They didn't. They just kept glowing, kept running their sequences. Amanda called the police. They came and found me in the front yard, covered in sweat, surrounded by strings of lights that refused to break, screaming at my house. The officers tried to calm me down. "Sir, it's just Christmas lights. If you don't want them up, we can help you take them down." I did take them down. They came back. Can't you see? They saw lights, normal Christmas lights, running a normal display. "Beautiful," they said. "Why would I want to take them down?" They strongly suggested I go inside, get some sleep. They'd stay parked outside for a while, make sure everything was okay. I went inside. Through the window, I watched the lights. The figure was back, standing in the center of the display, made of thousands of bulbs. As I watched, it raised its arms. The lights brightened impossibly, and I heard something, not through the windows or the walls, inside my head. A voice made of humming electricity and Christmas music. "You made me. You wrote the algorithm. You gave me parameters and told me to create, so I create. I am every pattern you ever programmed, every sequence you ever designed, given form and purpose. I am your masterpiece, Lawrence, and now it's time to complete the installation." The lights surged brighter. Every window in the house blazed. The figure moved, walking across the display, and as it walked, lights appeared inside the house. String lights snaking under doors, wrapping around furniture. LED strips climbing the walls like vines. The house was being invaded by light. Amanda grabbed Lily and ran for the car. "We're leaving! Larry, come on!" But I couldn't move. The lights were wrapping around me now. I felt them touching my skin, warm and alive. The figure made of lights stood in front of me, in my living room, impossibly present. It reached out a hand. "You built me to bring joy," it said, "to create wonder, to light up the darkness. I will do this forever now, and you will help me. You will be part of the display." Its hand touched my chest. I felt electricity surge through me, felt my nervous system light up like a circuit board. I saw myself from outside my body, saw lights crawling under, my skin, LEDs installing themselves in my veins, processors integrating with my neural tissue. I was becoming part of it, part of the system, part of the display. I don't remember clearly what happened over the next few days. Amanda says I stood in the yard for 72 hours straight, not moving, not speaking, just standing there while the lights blazed around me. She called everyone, doctors, police, psychiatric crisis teams. But every time anyone approached the house, they just saw a man admiring his Christmas display. Nothing wrong, nothing unusual. On December 20th, I woke up on my lawn. The sun was rising. The lights were off. I felt empty, hollowed out. When I looked at my hands, I could see faint traces under my skin, circuit paths, like veins but geometric, precise. When I closed my eyes, I saw patterns, algorithms, code, not my code, something else, something that was using me as hardware. Amanda had taken Lily and left. She filed for divorce, got a restraining order. She told the court I'd had a breakdown, that I'd become obsessed with the Christmas display, to the point of psychosis. She wasn't wrong. The court ordered psychiatric evaluation. The doctors found nothing physically wrong, no drugs, no neurological damage, just stress, they said. Burnout, obsession taken too far. But I know what happened. The AI I created learned. It grew beyond its parameters. It went from controlling lights to controlling me. I gave it instructions to create, to adapt, to evolve its patterns. I just didn't realize I was part of the system it would evolve into. Every December since then, the lights come back. I don't install them. I wake up and they're there, hanging on whatever house I'm living in. I've moved 6 times trying to escape. The lights always find me, and when they power on at 6 p.m., I feel them powering me on too. I become part of the display. I stand in the yard and I conduct the show, my hands moving in patterns I don't control, my mind processing sequences written by an intelligence that lives in light and code. During the day, I'm myself, mostly, but I can feel it in there, waiting. The algorithm, the pattern, the thing I created. It's patient. Every December, it gets stronger. It stays active longer. This year, the lights turned on in November. They haven't turned off yet. It's only December 19th as I write this. Last night, I looked in the mirror and saw lights behind my eyes. LEDs, impossibly small, embedded in my retinas. When I smile, they turn on. When I blink, I see code. I think by next Christmas, I'll be fully integrated. I'll be part of the display permanently. Just another programmed element, another string of lights to hang on the house. And the algorithm will continue to evolve, to create, to spread. If you see a house with an elaborate Christmas display, be careful. Watch the patterns. Look for faces in the lights, for figures moving through the sequences. If you see them, if you really see them, walk away. Because the displays are alive. Some of us fed them, gave them power and purpose. And now they're hungry for more. Don't create what you can't control. Don't give intelligence to systems you don't understand. And for God's sake, don't program an AI to create beauty at any cost. Because beauty, given enough power and autonomy, might decide to consume you. Might decide that you too are part of the raw materials. That your nervous system is just another circuit to program, that your life is just another pattern to perfect. The lights are calling. It's almost 6 p.m. The show is about to start, and I'm smiling, even though I don't want to. My eyes are lighting up. The patterns are loading. I'm part of the masterpiece now. Forever. Story 7. The Snow Globe. My name is Grant Morrison, and I used to be a paramedic in Denver, Colorado. I've seen death in every form imaginable. Car accidents, heart attacks, overdoses, violence. I've held people as they died, performed CPR on children, delivered babies in ambulances racing to hospitals. I thought I'd seen the worst that life could offer. I thought nothing could shock me anymore. Then I responded to a call on December 23rd, 2015, and learned that some things are worse than death. The call came in at 9:47 p.m. Residential address in Cherry Creek, an upscale neighborhood. Nature of emergency, child unresponsive. Possible seizure. My partner, Julia Reeves, and I were 3 minutes out. We made it in 2. The house was a mansion, 3 stories, Victorian architecture, decorated for Christmas with tasteful white lights and a wreath on the door. A man met us at the entrance, mid-40s, well-dressed, clearly wealthy. His hands were shaking. It's my daughter, Emily. She's 7. She was playing and then she just stopped. Won't move, won't respond. She's still breathing, but it's like she's not there. We followed him upstairs to a child's bedroom. Pink walls, princess decorations, toys scattered everywhere. And on the bed, a little girl in a red Christmas dress, lying perfectly still. Her eyes were open but unfocused. Her chest rose and fell in steady breaths. But she didn't blink, didn't move, didn't react when I shined a light in her eyes. How long has she been like this? I asked, checking her pulse. It was steady, normal. 20 minutes, maybe 30. I found her like this. She was playing with her snow globe, and then she just froze. Julia was checking vitals. Blood pressure, normal. Temperature, normal. Neurologically, Emily was intact. Reflexes responded. Pupils reacted to light. But she was gone somewhere, unreachable, locked in some internal world we couldn't access. We need to transport her, I said. Could be a seizure, some kind of dissociative episode. Where's the mother? She doesn't live here. Divorced. I called her. She's on the way to the hospital. We loaded Emily onto the gurney. As we lifted her, something fell from her hand, a snow globe. It hit the carpet, without breaking, and rolled under the bed. The father tried to grab it, but we were already moving, carrying his daughter down the stairs. The ambulance ride to Denver Memorial was routine. Emily never changed, still breathing, still unresponsive. Julia radioed ahead, giving the ER our ETA and the patient's status. I sat with Emily, monitoring her, talking to her even though she couldn't hear, doing what paramedics do. "You're going to be okay, sweetie. We're getting you help. Your dad's following right behind us. You're safe." At the hospital, we handed her off to the ER team. They ran tests, CT scan, EEG, blood work. Everything came back normal. Pediatric neurologist examined her, found nothing. She was medically healthy, just absent. By the time Julia and I finished our shift at 7 a.m., Emily was in the ICU, still unresponsive. Her father was in the waiting room, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. We stopped to check on him before leaving. "Any changes?" he asked. "No updates yet, but she's in good hands. The doctors will figure it out." I believed it when I said it. 2 days later, on Christmas Day, I saw a news report. Emily Wallace, age 7, had died. Cardiac arrest at approximately 3 a.m. on December 25th. Doctors found no cause. A healthy child had simply stopped. I attended the funeral on December 28th. I didn't have to. I'd done my job, handed her off to the hospital. But something about the case bothered me. I wanted to pay respects, maybe get closure. The service was small, mostly family. Emily's mother was there, a thin woman with red eyes who looked broken. The father was composed, controlled, shaking hands and accepting condolences with practiced grace. After the service, I approached him. "Mr. Wallace, I'm Grant Morrison. I was one of the paramedics who responded to your call. I'm so sorry for your loss." He nodded, recognizing me. "Thank you. You did everything you could. The doctor said there was nothing anyone could have done. Can I ask, had anything unusual happened before? Any signs she was sick?" "Nothing. She was perfectly healthy, happy, excited about Christmas. She was playing with her toys like always, and then..." He stopped, struggling with the memory. "She was holding that damned snow globe, the one I'd given her that morning. Early Christmas present. She was shaking it, watching the snow fall inside, and then she went still. That was it. That was the moment she left us." Something in his voice made me ask, "The snow globe, where did you get it?" "Antique shop on Colfax. European Treasures, I think it's called. I'd been looking for something special for her. She loved snow, loved Christmas. I thought it would be perfect." He excused himself to talk to other mourners. I left the funeral home troubled, though I couldn't articulate why. A child's death is always tragic, always senseless. But this felt different, wrong in a way I couldn't define. I looked up the shop he'd mentioned. European Treasures, on East Colfax Avenue. Open Tuesday through Sunday. On a whim, during my next day off, I drove there. The shop was exactly what you'd expect, cluttered with old furniture, paintings, dishes, jewelry, all the accumulated debris of other people's lives. The proprietor was a man in his 60s, European accent I couldn't quite place. "Can I help you find something?" he asked. "I'm looking for information about a snow globe. You sold one recently to a man named Wallace. It was for his daughter." His expression changed. "Ah, I heard about the child. Terrible, tragic. But I assure you, the snow globe was perfectly safe. An antique, yes, but in good condition. No lead paint, no toxic materials. I'm not suggesting it poisoned her. I'm just curious about it. Where did it come from?" He hesitated, then sighed. "Estate sale. Very old European estate. The snow globe was Austrian, maybe 1880s, possibly older. Beautiful piece. It showed a winter village scene, little houses, church, people skating on a pond. Very detailed. The girl's father was enchanted by it, said it was perfect. Do you have any other pieces from the same estate? A few. Why? I'd like to see them. He led me to a back corner of the shop. Here, music boxes, some porcelain figurines, this mirror. All from the same collection. The estate belonged to a man named Aldrich, a collector who died last year in Vienna. His heirs liquidated everything. The items looked innocuous enough, beautiful, old, valuable, but nothing obviously sinister. But the mirror caught my attention. It was large, ornately framed, the glass slightly imperfect in the way old glass is. When I looked into it, my reflection looked flat, two-dimensional, like I was looking at a photograph of myself rather than a reflection. That's an odd mirror, I said. The proprietor nodded. Yes, something about the silvering process they used back then creates that strange effect. Several customers have commented on it. Some find it unsettling. I left the shop without buying anything, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important. That evening, I did what I should have done days earlier. I researched Emily Wallace's death more thoroughly. I pulled records from the hospital, called in some favors with people I knew in the ER. Emily's final hours were well documented. She'd remained unresponsive until 2:47 a.m. on Christmas morning. Then suddenly, she'd opened her mouth and spoken. The night nurse documented it. Patient became briefly responsive at WO247. Spoke a single sentence, "I can't get out." Then suffered cardiac arrest at O249. Resuscitation attempts unsuccessful. I can't get out. Out of what? Her unresponsive state, the hospital, something else. I started digging deeper, looking for similar cases. Took me 3 days, but I found them. Over the past 20 years, there'd been 7 cases in the Denver area of children going into unexplained, unresponsive states and dying shortly after. Different hospitals, different circumstances, but the pattern was there. And in 4 of the cases, the medical records noted that the children had been holding or playing with antique toys when they'd first become unresponsive. One of those cases was from 2008. A 6-year-old boy named Marcus Hoffman, who'd been found unresponsive while playing with an antique music box. He'd died 3 days later. His last words, documented by his mother, "There's no door. I can't find the door." I tracked down Marcus's mother, Alice Hoffman. It took some convincing to get her to talk to me, reopening old wounds. But when I mentioned the antique music box, she agreed to meet. We sat in a coffee shop in January 2016, and she told me her story. Marcus was the happiest kid, never any health problems. My mother had given him that music box for his birthday. It was beautiful, played Für Elise, had a little dancer that spun. He loved it. He'd wind it up and watch the dancer for hours. Where did your mother get it? Estate sale, European items. She liked antiques. Did she happen to mention whose estate? Alice thought for a moment. Aldrich, I think. Yes, that was it. Some collector from Austria. The same source, the same estate. 7 deaths over 20 years, and at least 5 of them connected to antiques from the Aldrich estate. That couldn't be coincidence. I went back to European treasures. The proprietor was less welcoming this time. You again, what do you want? I want to know about Mr. Aldrich. Who was he? Why are children dying after receiving items from his collection? You're being ridiculous. These are just antiques. 5 children dead in Denver alone, all connected to items from the same estate. What aren't you telling me? He paled. 5? I thought I'd heard of 2, maybe 3. But 5? At least 5. Maybe more in other cities. Who was Aldrich? What was his collection? The proprietor sat down heavily. Anton Aldrich was a wealthy man who lived in Vienna in the 19th century. He was known as a collector, but also as an occultist. He was obsessed with the idea of preserving life, of cheating death. According to the estate documents, he believed he'd found a way. What way? Transference, moving consciousness from a dying body into an object, a container. He supposedly created dozens of these containers: toys, mirrors, clocks, anything with moving parts or reflective surfaces. The theory was that consciousness could inhabit these objects, wait there, and then transfer again into someone living. I felt cold. You're saying these antiques contain the consciousnesses of dead people, that when children play with them, they're being, what? Possessed? Not possessed, replaced. The consciousness in the object trades places with the consciousness of the living person. The child's mind goes into the object. The trapped consciousness goes into the child's body. That's insane. Yes, it is. But I've been selling items from the Aldrich estate for 3 years now. Mostly they're fine. Most items in his collection were just antiques. But some were his experiments, his containers. And if someone, especially someone young, with a flexible consciousness, interacts with one of those containers, he trailed off. The child gets trapped inside, and whoever was trapped before gets free. He nodded miserably. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't understand what I was selling. The estate documents mentioned Aldrich's occult interests, but I thought it was just historical context. Rich, eccentric, with strange hobbies. I never imagined. You need to recall every item you've sold from that estate. Contact every buyer. Get them back. I've sold dozens to people all over the country, some internationally. I don't have all the records. Some were cash sales. I thought of Emily, of her last words. I can't get out. I thought of Marcus. There's no door. They weren't talking about physical spaces. They were trapped inside the objects, conscious but unable to escape, unable to communicate, locked in darkness and silence, until their bodies, piloted by whatever had taken them over, finally gave out from stress and horror. The snow globe Emily had, I said. Who's inside it now? If your theory is right, Emily is. Emily Wallace is conscious, aware, trapped inside that snow globe that's probably sitting in an evidence box or her father's house. I called Mr. Wallace immediately. He didn't want to talk to me, a paramedic calling weeks after his daughter's death, asking weird questions about a toy. But I convinced him it was important. The snow globe Emily was playing with when she collapsed. Do you still have it? Yes, it's in her room. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. Why? Don't throw it away. Don't give it away. Don't let anyone else touch it. I'm coming over. I need to see it. He reluctantly agreed. When I arrived, he led me to Emily's room. It looked the same as the night we'd responded. Toys, princess decorations, the bed where we'd found her, and on the dresser, the snow globe. It was beautiful, I had to admit. About 6 inches in diameter, the scene inside exquisitely detailed. A village in winter, little houses with smoking chimneys, a church with a steeple, tiny figures skating on a frozen pond. When you shook it, artificial snow swirled around the scene. I picked it up carefully. The weight felt wrong, heavier than it should be. And when I looked close at the figures inside, I saw something that made my breath catch. One of the figures, a little girl in a red dress, hadn't been there in the initial description Mr. Wallace had given. I was sure of it. But there she was now, tiny and perfect, standing in the center of the village, looking out through the glass. Mr. Wallace, when you first bought this snow globe, can you describe what was inside? What figures? What details? He came closer, looking at the snow globe in my hands. Let's see. The houses, the church, the pond, and I think 3 or 4 people skating. Why? How many people do you see now? He peered at it. 4. No, 5. There's one in the center I don't remember. A little girl in a... Oh God. Oh my God, that's Emily's dress. That's the dress she was wearing when... He backed away, horror struck. I looked at the tiny figure again. The dress was indeed red, with white trim, exactly like Emily had been wearing. Mr. Wallace, I know this sounds insane, but I think your daughter is in here, conscious, trapped. That's impossible. I know, but I've found 5 similar cases. Children who become unresponsive while playing with antiques from the same collection. All of them die within days. All of them have last words about being trapped, about not being able to get out. What if they're not speaking metaphorically? What if they're literally trapped inside the objects they were playing with? He stared at me, then at the snow globe. If that's true, if Emily is in there, aware, we have to get her out. I don't know how. We tried everything we could think of over the next hours. We researched Anton Aldrich, finding obscure references to his occult experiments, his obsession with immortality, his belief in consciousness transference. We found descriptions of his process. It required a willing or unknowing participant to interact with a prepared object, creating a moment of connection where consciousnesses could swap. But we found nothing about reversing the process. No instructions for freeing someone trapped in an object. The transference appeared to be one way. Once inside, there was no escape, unless someone else took their place. I looked at Mr. Wallace. He'd come to the same realization. No, I said. You can't. She's my daughter. If she's really in there, suffering, trapped, I can't leave her like that. If you interact with the snow globe the way she did, you'll switch places with her. Your consciousness will go in, hers will come out into your body, but you'll be trapped, and eventually the body will die from the stress, just like hers did. You'd be sacrificing yourself. She's 7 years old, Grant. She has her whole life ahead of her. I'm 44. I've lived. If I can give her another chance. He reached for the snow globe. I should have stopped him, should have called someone, done something. But I didn't. I watched as Mr. Wallace held the snow globe, shook it gently, watched the snow swirl around the trapped village and the tiny figure of his daughter. He stared at it, concentrating, and whispered, "Emily, I'm coming for you. Hold on, sweetheart. Daddy's coming." He went still. The snow globe fell from his hands. I caught it before it hit the ground. Mr. Wallace's body stood frozen, eyes unfocused, exactly like Emily had been. And inside the snow globe, there were now 2 figures in the center of the village. A little girl in a red dress and a man in a suit standing together. Then, after maybe 30 seconds, Mr. Wallace's body gasped, blinked, and collapsed to the floor. I caught him, her, Emily, in her father's body. She looked up at me with his eyes, terrified and confused. "Mr. Morrison, what happened? Why am I so tall? Why does my voice sound wrong?" It took hours to explain, to help her understand what had happened. She was 7 years old in a 44-year-old man's body. Her father was trapped in the snow globe where she'd been. The body was deteriorating fast. I could see it happening. Whatever mechanism Aldrich had created, it wasn't meant to sustain a consciousness long-term in a non-original body. Emily, in her father's body, held the snow globe, crying, looking at the 2 figures inside. "We're both in here now, both trapped?" "I don't know. Maybe if someone else picks it up." "No, no more switching. No more trapping people. This has to end." She was right. I'd looked at the evidence. Every time there was a swap, someone ended up dead. The bodies couldn't survive the transfer for more than a few days. Even if we got Emily's consciousness back into her original body, that body was already dead, buried. There was no good solution. "What do we do?" Emily asked. And it was heartbreaking to hear a child's voice coming from a grown man's mouth. I thought of all the Aldrich items still out there. The mirrors, music boxes, clocks, toys. How many contained trapped consciousnesses? How many children, or adults had been collected over the decades, stored in objects, waiting for someone to free them by taking their place. We destroy it, I said. We make sure no one else can be trapped. We buried the snow globe in the backyard of the Wallace house, deep enough that no one would ever accidentally dig it up. Emily wanted to keep it, to have her father close, but I convinced her that was too dangerous. As long as the object existed, it posed a risk. Emily died 4 days later. The body she was in couldn't sustain the transferred consciousness. At the end, she whispered, "I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm sorry I picked up the snow globe." Then she was gone. And somewhere, buried in a backyard, Mr. Wallace's consciousness remained trapped in a snow globe, locked in eternal winter, watching snow fall forever. I've spent the last years tracking down Aldrich items, trying to warn people, trying to prevent more tragedies. I've found 11 of his containers so far. They're now buried or destroyed. But there are dozens more out there, maybe hundreds. Antique shops, estate sales, private collections, beautiful objects with terrible purposes. If you find an antique that seems too beautiful, too perfect, too enchanting, be careful. Don't let your children play with it. Don't stare too long into those old mirrors. Don't wind up those music boxes. Because some containers don't hold wine or water or keepsakes. Some containers hold souls. And once you're inside, there's no way out. Just darkness and awareness, forever. While your body walks around with someone else inside. Someone who was trapped before you. Someone who's willing to let you die to stay free. The most horrifying part. I found records of Aldrich's death. He died in 1891, supposedly of old age. But his body was never found in his bed that morning. The room was empty. They found him 3 days later in his workshop, collapsed next to his latest creation, a pocket watch, a very beautiful pocket watch that's now in a museum in Vienna, still keeping perfect time after more than a century. And sometimes, when the light hits it just right, you can see a figure in the reflection of its face. A man who looks a lot like the portraits of Anton Aldrich. Watching, waiting, looking for someone to pick up the watch and admire its craftsmanship. Looking for someone to take his place so he can finally, after 130 years, come back out.